All right, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon. I'm moderating this event. I am so thrilled to be here, and we have a great webinar on tap. Before we get started, though, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of it, you will have the opportunity to access it later. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we will be taking questions from the audience, although we may not have time for a formal question and answer period. But that should not discourage you. Please, if at any time during today's presentation you have a question for any of our panelists or all of them, go ahead and use the question and answer interface tab there on your interface and submit it. And we will take a look at the questions throughout. And if there is a question that is relevant at that particular moment, then we may just go ahead and ask that question. Same thing with our very interactive chat feature. We'll be monitoring the chats from you, the audience. Make sure that if you have a question or a comment or a suggestion during the webinar and it's relevant to what we're talking about, we will absolutely get it involved in the conversation. So please feel free to use both the question and answer tab and the chat tab, and we want to hear from you, definitely. Also, at the end of today's webinar, we're going to be doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our 4 lucky winners. All right, with that, let us go ahead and kick off today's webinar. We have 5 amazing panelists on today's webinar, which is the state of continuous delivery. We have Senthil Nathan, who is a product manager over at HCL Software. Meghana Dwarakanath, and I apologize, I always butcher that. Sorry, Director of Customer Success at Level Ops, Jay Epps, who is a team lead solution architects at Keysight, Jeffrey Guys, who's the VP of Product at Flora, and Zachary Conger, who is the Senior DevOps Engineer at Stackhawk. What a star-studded lineup I have in front of me today. I am so excited to have you guys on. Welcome to all of you. I'm going to take the title slide off the panel right now so we can all be on the screen, and then the audience can see all of us as we're speaking. So what a good looking bunch we are. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, but I do want to, again, thank you guys for joining me today. Just kind of setting the stage. We've been talking about continuous delivery pretty much about as long as DevOps has been in existence. And we always talk about it in the context of CI/CD, and CI being continuous integration, and then there's continuous delivery. And you know, everybody seems to, well, not everybody, but you know, most people or most organizations, when they go down that DevOps path, it seems to me that a lot of most organizations have more luck with a continuous integration than they are with continuous delivery. It seems much easier for them to kind of grasp their minds around and really understand it and really make the most of it. So continuous delivery kind of remains this thing that so many organizations have a hard time dealing with. So that's kind of what the focus of today's conversation is going to be about. But you know, we also want to add some more elements about some of the things maybe that make up a continuous delivery tool chain, that make up, you know, a successful one. Some of the things that organizations maybe are not doing well with their continuous delivery tool chain, some of the things, the roadblocks that are getting in the ways, some of the best practices maybe for deriving the most success from their continuous delivery pipeline. Those and so much more, depending on what our panel and what you, the audience, want to impart in today's presentation. So I'm going to give everybody just like 30 seconds to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your company, and then we'll kick off the conversation. So Jeff, since you're right next to me, why don't you get us started?
You bet. So Jeff Keyes, I run products at Plutora. We're a value stream management platform, and that's a whole lot of words. And what does that mean? We ingest data from across the tool chain and correlate it, normalize it, and make it basically standard, regardless of whatever tool, team, or methodology is being used. As a cloud-based platform, we then layer on top of that a set of functionality for workflow and orchestration, release orchestration, deployment orchestration, not automation per se, not but basically a puppeteering solution that sits on top. It normalizes those activities that are automated, kicking those tools off, and those that are basically manual, and coordinating with those folks who are going to come in and do things or send emails to them. And then we bring all that data together into an analytics platform, giving you insights, flow metrics, DevOps DORA metrics, if you will, and relate them all together. All of that of combining the agile and DevOps delivery is what's known as value stream management, managing a set of systems. That's what we do.
All right, great. Thanks, Jeff. Meghana, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, what you guys do?
Absolutely. I'm the Director of Customer Success at DevOps. And DevOps is an engineering excellence platform, which means what we do is we integrate with every tool you have across the engineering tool chain, right from product to Jira to SCM to deployment, and we bring them together on our SaaS-based platform where we drive analytics, provide insights into metrics, the direction the team is going in, DORA and beyond, and help you run your teams in a data-driven fashion. So what we also do is then come back and give you very actionable insights and workflows into fine-tuning your process, making it work for you, and getting you where you need to be.
All right. Great. Thank you, Meghana. Zachary, why don't you tell us about yourself?
So I'm a senior DevOps engineer. I work with StackHawk, and at StackHawk, we have developed a scanner. It's actually an open source scanner that we've packaged up and made deployable into CI/CD solutions. So you can run it at CI time or deployment time. And we've matched it up with a platform backend so that you can gather the data. We gather the data for you of all of your scans and all of your applications in all of the different environments that you might deploy it to. And so you can keep a track of data from the scanner, such as what security vulnerabilities you've found, what you've done with them, how you've triaged them, if you've accepted them or punted them, or if you've assigned them to different users through Jira or whatnot. We've got integrations with Slack and Jira and MS Teams and a variety of other tools so that you can really just track the security of your application as it flows through the pipeline, through to production, and keep track of that and keep on top of it so you can solve those bugs as they come up instead of after the fact once they've made it to production.
Excellent. All right, great. Thanks, Zachary. Jay, tell us about yourself, your company, all that good stuff.
Okay. I lead the solution architect team for the Americas for Keysight testing group, primarily a product called Eggplant. Keysight is a large company that specializes in all different types of testing equipment, hardware, oscilloscopes, spectrum analyzers, DoD. Our product line is we use a model-based approach to test software using artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually do some predictive analysis to actually automatically test areas that might be a concern. We know we're getting away from the mindset of looking at number of test cases, and we're actually looking at the entire application. Is the application ready, good to go? And being able to make those decisions rather quickly. We do this with, like I said, with a model-based approach, but our tools are very non-intrusive. They sit on way on top of the layer. There's no interaction with the DOM or any interactions. It's not platform specific. So we do everything here from missile systems in the military to medical grade microscopes, all the way down to client server, web, terminal emulators, etc. So it's a pretty versatile aspect.
Very cool. Thank you, Jay. And last but certainly not least, Senthil, please tell us about yourself and your company.
Yeah, thank you. So this is Senthil. I'm product manager for HCL Launch, which is our continuous delivery platform. HCL Launch has a set of DevOps tools that starts from source control management to value stream management. Maybe I'll just talk about a couple of them with the 30 seconds that you gave me. I don't think I can talk about all of them. So Launch is a continuous delivery platform. We deliver, our motto is basically deliver anything to anywhere. We deliver to any kind of legacy platform to containers and cloud-based solutions. We have the gating mechanisms, approvals inbuilt, notifications, and all that thing that you need on a deployment tool with 400 plus plugins that can talk to any of the middleware that's out there, any of the platforms that out there to help you to do deployments without you doing no scripting. And Accelerate is our value stream management solution, which helps you to find your bottlenecks across your CI/CD pipeline, help you to get your software quicker to your end customers, understand your bottlenecks in your process, and helps you to figure out what you can do to solve them.
All
That's
right.
pretty much it.
Excellent. All right. Well, I just love the range of expertise that we have on this panel. Let's go ahead and kick off the conversation. One of the, like I said before, one of the things that I hear a lot with organizations is the complexity that a lot of organizations are dealing with when they're talking about their continuous delivery pipeline, and the fact that it's just not easy for them. So, but taking a step back, I wonder if we actually kind of need to kind of explain what a continuous delivery pipeline. I mean, I'm assuming that everybody on this webinar already knows what it is, but there may be some, one or two people who maybe don't understand the value of continuous delivery in the CI/CD pipeline. So why don't we kind of start there and just talk a little bit about why continuous delivery is such an important part of the DevOps equation. So I don't know who wants to start out with that, but I think it's important for us to kind of establish that baseline.
I mean, if I can go,
Sure.
I'd say that the DevOps job, or the idea of DevOps, has been to integrate the operations side of the house with the developer side of the house, and what that's led to is really sort of the development, the developer mindset, getting into the operations side of the house more than the other way around. So the idea has quickly become, how do we get developers' software into production quickly and safely? And the answer to that has largely become to automate the solutions. And so this has really quickly, I think, become one of the most important parts of the DevOps job. There's also observability. But it all goes hand in hand, gathering data, getting commits into the pipeline, and delivering out the other end deployable software.
And that's been quite the journey too, because like you said, Zach, I mean, so much of DevOps really focuses on dev and not ops, unfortunately, and need to bring these groups together better than we've done in the past. The journey is not just one of technology too, it's such a cultural push. There's still teams out there on the ops side that are, in essence, compensated based upon uptime or what's incident response time, how much downtime was there. I mean, oh my gosh. And so who's the enemy of that? Well, all those blasted developers that keep pumping code over, and, sure, let them into my environment so that they can go blow stuff up and blow out my bonus. No wonder we've had problems, because we've got to address some of the core things about managing the flow of value from idea to production versus having cordoned off teams culturally and every other way that makes it harder to deliver software. Also making it more difficult is there's a journey of test that's included there, where traditional test teams, we validate quality through the journey. So there's a myriad of test environments that things flow through. How do we transform that to shift things left, include more tools that are built in and build quality in versus verify at the end? This is a hard journey. It's not for the faint of heart.
Correct. Don't underestimate the cultural impact. Like both of you are saying, you're taking the developer's mindset of let's change everything to an operational mindset of let's change nothing. And you're trying to push it through. And without data and confidence, one is not always the same as the other. We're never going to get that through. And the biggest disappointment in continuous delivery is the failure of the next step, which is continuous analysis, right? Without getting this full loop, you can't get all the information from the ops all the way back to feed the beginning of the stream again. And you find that's a big concern. And, testing, I'm a little prejudiced because that's been my background for 20 plus years, but testing is very integrate to that. testing's always been burdened by legacy, the way things are currently done, and we usually test to check for mistakes that we've made. And depending on operations, we might be testing a mistake that was made 10 years ago.
Mhm.
You know, we've got to learn to take some confidence, once again, mindset shift, take some confidence, believe the data, and move it forward.
Yeah, that's right. So in many of the organizations, even when they have done some part of continuous delivery, they don't measure the final outcome. They really just think they've automated it, and that's about it. It's done. That's what they think. But with a lot of manual testing that's involved in between, they still see that the delivery to production is still slow, and they sometimes see that the continuous. They sometimes think the continuous delivery doesn't work because of the other bottlenecks that are there in the process, right? So yeah, testing is a very important piece. We have to make sure that we have things as much as automated on the testing end to move this thing further. Yeah.
Absolutely. When we are talking about continuous integration, continuous delivery, I think one thing we also need to include is continuous visibility, right? What am I delivering? What is going out there? And who do I need to bring into the chain? When we talk about CI/CD and we say DevOps, we think it's a cultural change that's limited to engineering teams, but ultimately it's features getting pushed out to customers, which means we need to bring in the entire range of organization into that cultural shift of being able to deliver value better, being able to be in sync better. And I know a few of you touched on continuous improvement. So I think we need to add that into the bucket: continuous integration, continuous visibility. And how do we get that cultural shift buy-in from teams outside of engineering? Because ultimately, it's the entire value chain that's being delivered in a new way today.
Yeah, that is so true, Meghana. Our product team is in our delivery pipeline, and our data team is in our delivery pipeline. And security. I'm from a company that takes security very seriously. That needs to go into your pipeline too. Really, it's an ideal place if you're a software-driven company, or if your product is software. Every aspect of your company can put their elements into your pipeline and make sure that their values and what they want to see go into the product gets in there and gets in there with quality and confidence.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a critical part of this journey of recognizing that it is a journey. There's no, we've arrived and we've hit the end state and, we're in nirvana. This journey is going to take a long time, and we need to prep leadership to get on board with, in essence, like you were talking about, Magna, the process of continual improvement. Mm-hmm. And having the data and the visibility that helps us on this journey is pretty key. So when we go down any kind of journey, we have to change our mindset, not only from a product, to a product-oriented team, but with every improvement we make, let's demonstrate, how do we do? How many executive has heard pitch after pitch for decades now about this tool, this methodology, this change? Boy, we're going to get there and everything's going to be wonderful. We're going to be great. And, a few years later, there's no real result of, did we do better than we did before? The point of value stream management practices is to, look at the overall, how is this journey of continuous delivery going? Are we doing better than we did before? What metrics do we use to demonstrate that at the end of the day?
Absolutely. And they do think continuous delivery is some kind of a magic bullet, right? It's going to be, we deliver in small improvements. We're not going to have bugs. Everything's going to be awesome. But we all know that's not the case. It's all about risk management. And a huge chunk of risk management is knowing what's going on, measuring what's going on, and realigning yourself all the time.
And I think what Jeff's saying is about it's a journey. Many years ago when DevOps started to come out, and I'd go to customers and they say, what is DevOps? I mean, it was literally those conversations. It's a mystery. It was a phantom. And I'd say, do you develop software? They say, yes. Do you deliver? Yes. Well, then you're doing DevOps. The trick is just to do it more efficiently. So it's not an alien world. I think one of the biggest problems with the continuous delivery part of this is that they look at it as part of the DevOps as an all or nothing. It is a constant improvement. We'll take just for a second, take both sides of the story. You get those unicorns you always read about, right? They're down to 22,000 updates a day. They can do it in 14.3 seconds. But they're spending money right now to get it to 13 seconds, 12 seconds, 11 seconds. They're trying to improve it. But I feel just as strongly that if you're developing software and you deliver once a quarter, let's say you're still in that life cycle of once a quarter and you get it to once a month, that's a major hurdle. It's a bigger hurdle than taking 14 to 13 seconds.
Yeah.
But once you've made that, guess what? That's a victory. That's not a failure. You get it to, from 30 days to 20 days to 18 days to 17 days to 16 to 14, inner sprint. The idea here, it is a journey. It is a moving target. And there's no point that you give up because you are only releasing once a month. Guess what? You used to do once a year. I mean, take the intermittent grains where you get them, learn from it, and keep that journey moving forward.
Yeah. It's important to have the cycle be short enough that you have an effective feedback cycle, right? That you've learned something from the entire delivery process. You've gotten it out to customers, and now you're getting feedback on it while the code is still fresh in mind for developers, while the product ideation is still fresh in mind for product people.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead. Sorry, Charlan. Yeah. And any continuous delivery solution should ideally support at the enterprise level a single solution. The idea of splitting it into multiple solutions comes and hurts back with each individual teams trying to do their own stuff and they trying to reinvent the wheel that someone else has done it in almost similar kind of platform that comes and hurts. And the other thing is some kind of templating that helps you to take a template in one team where it works in a deployment pipeline and use that across to other teams with similar kind of tech stack, right? If you don't do that, then each team is going to try their own continuous delivery solution. They are going to learn it as they go and they're going to reinvent the entire wheel again. So some kind of a reuse has to be there in an enterprise for others to gain what you learn in one team.
So do you think that, Magana, to your point earlier, you mentioned visibility as a very important part of this. So do you think that a lot of the disconnect that's happening these days comes down to a lack of visibility and not understanding not only what is happening in the continuous integration process, but also what, to your point, Senil, what different teams are doing and how they're approaching it, and is visibility kind of that first step in creating a much more approachable continuous delivery approach?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
So, to Senthil's point, I actually wanted to come back to what Senthil had to say. The ideal world, everybody would use one template, right? But then we are also in this microservice world where teams want to be empowered. They want to use the technologies that work for them, where they can develop faster. So in that sense, it is definitely a balance. And that's where the visibility part becomes so critical, right? How do you let your teams do what they need to do, but still normalize and give that normalized and standardized layer of visibility that abstracts from the tools in terms of, hey, what am I delivering? What's my security posture? What is my quality posture? How do I abstract that and still give the teams freedom? And I think that is a huge win for continuous delivery, to be able to do that, to build it on top of what they're already using instead of corralling them into templates, because frankly, I don't think that will work very well. Teams are going to do what they want to do.
And it's hard to innovate when you're stuck in that little mindset. But the visibility you can't underestimate it, right? You've got to come up with some sort of common language. We're talking about two different groups of people, as we talked earlier, with different mindsets. So we have to have something that gives confidence to the others, but gives victories to the developers who are living on that kind of mindset. Speed it up so it's fresh in their mind. All these are things we've been talking about for years and years and years. The biggest failures come when the one team doesn't know what the other ones are doing. We live in an enterprise world. This is one of my personal problems with pure Agile is we live in an enterprise world and there's 22 different applications that are coming to a single release. So we have to have some way of normalizing that information, right? Could be template, you could break it out and you meet somewhere in the middle that client servers would be this kind of template mindset, SAP would be this, PeopleSoft would be this, web, mobile, this. So you can at least get to some sort of commonality for the reporting.
Correct.
But without having the freedom to do what they need to do for best of them, they're not going to get that innovation. Without that innovation, they're not going to be supplying the market what they want, which would then pay for more innovation. So there's also this capitalistic circle of it too. We're trying to deliver software for a reason, to deliver a product, deliver a service, or sell something, which drives the change at the very beginning.
And I think this conversation and the controversy here is awesome, because it's the same controversy that I've heard over and over, which is sort of the journey of release automation to release orchestration, and how that's bubbled into the discussion around value stream management. There is a journey that everybody's got to go through. You start with understanding what your current pipeline is. Look for where the weaknesses are. How do you do that? Do a value stream map. Look for the process. Look for your cycle time. Set a goal of what your critical problems are. Is it quality? Is it speed? What kind of re-architecture, decomposition, team organization, tooling? Which areas are you going to focus on next, in essence, to try to attack those problems? Set the goals. Fill that data into the kind of tools you're looking for, and that's where all this starts to get really interesting. What tools do I need for that? What data do I need? Is the template the right thing? Is it, let me shift left some of the tooling? Do I look for some insights in some of the data that's being pulled out? It's all good. Show your improvement, and make a bet, but take a bite out of the apple and continue forward. You're not going to get it all in one fell swoop. You're not going to re-architect a decades-old application into a cloud-native, microservice, Lambda-based whatever overnight. It ain't going to happen. Even if it could, you're not going to get the rest of the organization to come along with you. It's a journey.
Yeah.
So what then would make up, the elements of a continuous delivery pipeline? And is it the same for every organization? And is it evolutionary?
Yeah, I think it is an evolutionary process for most companies. And if you're lucky enough to be at a greenfield opportunity, a brand new company that's just getting started, it is important to have a DevOps, it's important to have a delivery pipeline from the start, because even as a young company, I think a lot of young companies feel like they may not have time for that, but it's really important to have that so that you can start to get that iterative flow immediately. You get that feedback cycle, quick delivery cycle. It's important for prototyping. But I think some of the critical elements for a development pipeline or for a software delivery pipeline are, first, that you've got some fast checks that happen right on commit so that developers get some quick feedback. And it's all about information, right? All the way through the pipeline, getting information back and gaining confidence as you go. So some form of commit stage that lets a developer know, hey, I didn't make any really bad errors. My formatting is correct, which is actually more important than a lot of people think, because as the code gets bigger and your PRs get bigger, if your PR is all formatting changes, you're just going to confuse everybody with all these changes in code that make no difference whatsoever. And then as you go down the line through the pipeline, you're doing harder and longer tests, but and they're giving you more confidence, but you may or may not need to stake the decision of whether or not you're going to release software on some of those big, long tests that might happen at the end, or might happen even less frequently than on every push.
I would want to point out that if it is a startup or a young company, I think it's more important to think about it than a bigger company. It's like anything, you plan and making a database, you'd always want to lay out the database before you made it, right? Because it's easier to make fresh than to create. So I would say with the younger companies, take the time. You're going to get payback a millionfold. Our problems get really big and complex in the bigger composites. And Jeff's talking about 20-year-old software. 3 years ago, I saw COBOL code that was modified 26 years ago that's still running major banks, right? So there is a lot of that stuff out there, and it surprises me every time I'm watching DB2, because I used, it was some of the first stuff I learned. But it is important to get that set as a foundation, and as you move forward, the faster the information is better. And even if you're moving a slow process, there's no reason not to get that bad news back quickly. And that takes a lot of swallowing pride, swallowing agendas. Let's be honest of what we're trying to do. You bring, the developers, the operations start looking at it as a bigger objective instead of their little, as Jeff was saying, they're paid on uptime. Uptime's extremely important, but uptime's no good if you can't deliver a product, right? We're up 99.9% of the time, but I can't give you a car, because something downstream is broken, right? It's all in there, but Zachary keyed me on the new ones, because I work with a lot of startup companies, and that's the first thing I do is say, step back. What is your DevOps? What's your continuous pipeline going to look like? Let's map this out before you've got an idea. Before you write a line of code, let's figure that out, because you will thank me later.
Yeah, and I don't agree to the idea that even only the newer companies or the other startups have to think about this.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, but it's very important.
Yeah. But today's enterprises, right? I speak to a lot of large enterprises. They realize that they have to move in the same speed. It's the same business opportunity at the end of the day, and if they don't move in the same speed as the startups go, maybe a little slower, but not a lot slower, right? They have to move in the same speed, and they have some legacy applications, like you said, the COBOL ones that are written 30 years back, but they have to get them to the point where they can deliver even those things at the same speed as their mobile apps. Maybe not twice in a day, but at least to the point of delivering once in 2 weeks, right? So they have to bring it to that. But there was a concept of by speed IT about 4 or 5 years back, where a lot of enterprises tried saying, okay, some of my applications are slow, I'm going to leave them out there, and I will move only other set of few in a new technical platforms to a faster speed. But it went back and backfired them. Many of their mobile apps had a web service that has to fetch a data from a sequential file that was sitting in a mainframe in the backend, and if that app wasn't getting delivered quicker, then that web service is not getting delivered quicker, then the mobile app doesn't finally give you the data that you need. So the enterprises realize that today. They know that they have to move faster. A lot of them are like Jay said, once in 3 months deliveries, and moving them to even once in a month, twice in a month. That's a challenge. But a lot of them really take it as serious as the startups today to get things going.
I saw a Forrester report, I think it was a year ago or right before we locked down, that came out, and it was talking about the velocity of releases, and it looked at the previous 5 or 6 years. And 5 years ago, if you're releasing once a quarter, you still are. The same percentage of people are. If you were releasing once a week, you're still doing it once a week. I think the reason it's stalled, that velocity is kind of stalled at this point, is for everything we've talked about here today. The continuous delivery, it's the confidence, it's the reporting, it's the visibility. We can actually prove it, every company, even though I'm not going to name names, but even some of the most messed up places I've been to, I've seen them actually develop software, fix it, and get their DevOps cycle down to a pretty good time. It's just getting the confidence to actually move that forward and getting over the history and all the problems, because they don't have the visibility, they don't have the reporting, they're not tracking the right metrics. So I would like to really see that velocity chart over the next 2 years start to actually shift, where for 5 years we've been delivering once a month, and now it's every 2 weeks. I'd like to see those, but it really hasn't happened yet.
And to the point about velocity, right? Here's one of the things I've noticed when we talk to some of our customers who are going through this transformation with CI/CD. They do track velocity, and that's such a one-dimensional view of how you're doing, right? That is just one dimension. I like to call it engineering momentum, when you need to track the volume, the velocity, and the direction in which you're going. Velocity is a vector, right? So, and that's been one of the cultural changes. Just because you're deploying faster doesn't mean you're delivering value faster. And that's a cultural mindset to be able to say, hey, this is one metric, but you also need these other metrics to make sure you're making the impact in the right direction, right? How do you know what you're deploying, how much you're deploying, and what is the quality of what you're deploying? And are you delivering business value? And I feel like these conversations have been left out of the CI/CD journey for a while. It's been very velocity focused, but then bringing in insights about all these other areas, giving context to that velocity is going to help teams track in the right direction and deliver value. Ultimately, we want to deliver value at the end of the pipeline.
And it goes back to that continuous assessment, right? Without the continuous delivery, we can't get the assessment, the information back to the dev as quickly as we need to, right? And, we can be the most innovative company in the world and create the greatest things in the world, but if we don't ever release it, no one's ever going to see it, that we can't get feedback to make it better,
Yeah, and it's an addictive process too. Like once a company has developed some form of software delivery process that's automated like this, they, if you ask them, well, what do you think of the old way? What would you think of going back to the old way? There's no way. No one ever wants to go back. Seeing what this can do and how much value it can deliver. And I think developers and QA testers and data people, security people, once they get into it and understand how it can accelerate everything that they're trying to do, it's just extremely powerful.
Yeah.
So where does security fit into this conversation, though? Because we talk a lot about security in the CI part of the CI/CD pipeline, but not as much in the CD part. So talk to me a little bit about where it should fit, and when we're talking about security, what exactly are you looking to secure in the CD pipeline?
Yeah, like pipeline. Supply chain security has kind of been in the news lately.
Yep.
Just a little bit.
And it kind of makes you think that it belongs pretty much everywhere in a delivery pipeline. So it belongs in the commit stage, in the CI stage. And in the delivery stage, you've got a real opportunity to do even more testing and even more complex testing. So at that stage, you can do API fuzzing. You can do you can take tools like StackHawk and do security testing and security probing with DAST tools. Whereas earlier in the pipeline, you may have been limited to SAST tools, static analysis tools, and dependency analysis.
And there's a lot of work that needs to go on there. So often security, the security push or the security sprint, I hope we do away with that longer term as we push things left in the cycles. So much of, some security stuff can be automated, some stuff can't. That's okay. One of the current pushes coming out of the Value Stream Management Consortium is the idea of analyzing the kind of work we have going on in the pipeline, and one chunk of it being risk related. So why not evaluate those work items that are non-functional in nature, but are in essence activities that have to be performed? Every release manager in an enterprise has already had a laundry list of checklists of make sure security X, Y, and Z is done, happening after the software is built, which has led to some instability in release timelines when things weren't addressed, or they found a problem. I'm like, oh gosh, now go back and re-architect, or go plug all these holes and fix something in a non-optimal way. Ideally, a security needs to be thought about really one of the first things. We live in a different world than we ever have before. So start with security in mind. Do your threat modeling, your threat analysis, build it in to begin with. Try to figure out, if attackers are coming on, not just in the software itself, but in the pipeline, in the, your cloud solution. How do I prevent my threat surfaces there? And use management software to help manage the journey so that it doesn't become a CAB discussion in an enterprise where, did you do your security stuff? No. It's already been thought about, and here's all the activities we've done, and here's our remediation that we've done for it. Here's our modeling that we've had for it. Here's the automated tools we've included. Here's the reports that we've done from external. Here's our, and then when you do get down to the end, and if you do want to have an overall threat push for everything, great, but it can be more universal, even to the point of bringing in external to evaluate it. So when beginning, please.
Yeah.
And to what Jeff said, right, one of the interesting things I've noticed is when we ask engineers about, hey, how's your product quality? What's your development velocity? They usually have a pretty good idea. But then when you go and ask them, what's your risk posture? It's like a blank there. So it's almost like security and engineering are living in two different universes that don't interact as much. And that, again, is where visibility needs to play a very, very big role, early, continuous, and throughout the pipeline, right? Being able to tell every single person who's working on your team what the security posture is, what are the anticipated security steps. Not every person on an engineering team even knows what's happening in terms of threat modeling or pen testing. And I feel it's super critical to be able to bring that awareness and visibility in, because if you want to drive this change culturally and make it a part of the development process, then everybody needs to know what's going on, when it is happening, and how it impacts. So being able to present that posture, that overall picture that says, hey, by the way, this is how you're tracking on security, just like how you're tracking on velocity, for example, is super critical to bringing that shift and getting security into the pipeline.
And not forgetting about it, right? We could have had this conversation 5-6 years ago. We could have had it 10 years ago, because there were different things happening at different times. And it gets to be very exciting for a period of time. And I'll use static analysis tools as a good example. People brought in all these static analysis. Okay, we've checked that box, we can move on. The thing about security, a white hacker told me years ago, says you can plan on anything, but they're going to make another 14-year-old kid, right? They're always going to be that next person out there trying to attack you. So it's not a one and done, like Jeff was saying. It's got to be a thought. It's got to be a plan. As Magna was saying, it's something that has to be aware. It has to be upfront, and it has to be very adaptive. Because the threats we're facing today are so much different than someone just going in to get Sony emails, or 20 years ago, the DTS, the police losing 22 million records. I mean, they're so much different now. Now they're costing billions of dollars and shutting down businesses and corporations and governments. So it's not just them. What's the impact on a business? If you're a typical 20 million, 5 million, or $1 billion company, you get attacked. It's major. I mean, it's a major problem, and it would have been cheaper to, like Magda said, think about it constantly. As Jeff said, make part of the infrastructure and adapt. But I think the biggest mistake in security, as I've seen, is the adaptiveness. And I think that slows down this whole continuous delivery, because it's the competence of the operations to accept change, right? Yeah. They're the ones that's going to get the risk.
Throw in one other piece in there. When WannaCry virus came out, what it hit most interestingly was the pre-production environments, not prod. Prod was fine, for the most part, prod was fine. But there was this petri dish of unpatched environments that were sitting there being utilized to verify software builds and all part of this continuous delivery process that were, just restore builds, bringing data over and so forth. And WannaCry had a field day, shut down massive. The impact of the organization was enormous. Now you got this worm that's running rampant. That's, even denial of service in some places, because you got so many different places attacking from it. A very easy attack point on your continuous delivery is, please fix your environments. When I say that, start managing them. Know what's where. They don't have to be all infrastructure as code, 100% automated. There's tools out there that do this. We happen to be one of them. By all means, implement something that will manage these environments and move forward your journey of keeping them up to date, managing the process of transformation of those into infrastructure as code, managing the intake, being able to coordinate what the utilization of. Any continuous delivery process, one of the first blockers you're going to hit is, oh crap, now I got to go deal with environments because I don't know if its state is up or down and my deployment process is blowing up. I can't get my test to run it. I don't know what builds are on it. Oh my gosh, please, it's like the simplest thing in the world. Get it out of spreadsheets. Get it out of people's head or sitting on somebody's desk.
So
Yeah,
whose
and
job
we
then
should
is it?
secure.
It's
Yeah.
we talk about throwing everything in there, but at the end of the day, it's like the developers are like, oh, you're going to throw something else on me to do to handle. With security, it's managing these environments. It's like, are we asking developers to do too much?
No,
We're asking them to do a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of the work is shifting to their plates, and maybe to some extent the answer is a few more developers in some cases, because once you give them these problems to work on, they dig into it. If they have the information and they've got that as part of their objective, and they've got the feedback cycle that's telling them, hey, you just introduced a new problem, they're going to figure it out and they're going to fix it. And then, but there's still room for all of these different roles to be checks on the developers as well, because at the end of the pipeline, all that data that you've gathered on the security and all of the work that they've done has resulted in a stronger product, and you've got all of this data that you can then hand off to that pen tester at the end of the year. So they've got better information to go on, and you're getting more money. You're getting more value for your money that you're spending on pen testers.
Yeah.
And Magda was actually saying the key here. I don't think we're asking enough of developers, but I think the reason is because we're not telling them why. Tell them why it's important, why it matters. A lot of developers, you meet them, they're young or senior, it doesn't really matter. They think they're just adjusting one little code. They're just putting one little snippet in. They don't see the forest, for the trees. And I think the training of why something is important, what's the impact of a simple mistake, incorrect zip code, or it doesn't matter. I've seen all these mistakes made, but we're not asking enough of developers. Maybe more developers, maybe slow them down a little bit, but they should all know why. I think that's something the developers don't always get. They know what, they know where, and not always where, according to Jeff. I agree with Jeff, the infrastructure is always a great place to attack, but they don't know why. And I think Magda just nails it with that information has to get back.
Totally, Jay. I mean, I've been on both sides of that aisle. I've been a developer for years. I have done those mistakes, right? I have written bad SQL queries that brought production down. And I probably wouldn't have written them if I knew that was going to happen.
Right.
So totally get that. And in terms of work, right? Zachary, you were talking about developers having to do more work. I feel like this work needs to be done no matter what.
Right.
It's just a question of when. Do you want to do it after your environment has been attacked and go clean them up? Or do you want to take time now?
And the job is so much harder if they're just getting the information once a year from a gigantic pen test report, right?
Yep, totally.
And what do you do? It's so daunting.
It is.
Yeah. Jeff talked about securing the environments. The other thing is securing the CD pipeline as well, right? That's important as well. If your pipeline is not secure enough, then it doesn't matter that your code is good, your code is secure, all that stuff, right? So the pipeline has to be secure enough. You don't want to leave those deployment scripts open for anyone to go and play around with it and then end up having something else on your production than what you expected. So your CD pipeline should be more secure, and that's another key thing in the sentence.
No one would ever exploit a pipeline like
No,
that.
never.
Supply chain?
No, never have. So I think we answered Charlene's question. When, where is always and everywhere. It's
All right.
part of everything.
Well, that's the way it is. So which is great. And I don't think enough companies actually understand that. I think they think still, especially with security, they could just kind of put it in there somewhere, maybe at one point, and it's, check off the box and they're done. But, when we're talking about continuous delivery, continuous integration, it also needs to be continuous security. So, that is, I don't think enough organizations understand that. Real quick, we are about 11 minutes to the top of the hour, so I want to start slowly, but I want to start kind of wrapping up our conversation a little bit. And I would like to kind of pivot to maybe taking a look at some of the best practices that organizations can consider when they are talking about their continuous delivery pipeline, some of the ways that they can really get the most success out of it. And then, if that maybe includes both the product, the security, infrastructure, other elements that they need to keep in consideration. So, Senthil, I want to start with you and see if you have any thoughts on some of the best practices that organizations can keep in mind.
Sure. I know people have differences on opinions on templates, but I think I'll go back to templates. I think someone should start with a template. They feel free to change things, but there should be a starting point that they start with. I've seen organizations, individual teams, starting from the scratch and trying to reinvent the wheel, doing things wrong when just a couple of cubicles away someone has done the same thing right. So DevOps is not just within an application group, people talking to each other. It should be across the enterprise. People should share things, what they learn from each other. When we talked about security, if there is a security vulnerability that was identified on an application, then others should know about it in the organization so that they don't repeat it. Similarly, on a deployment process, there should be a way that they take up a template and then customize it for what they want. So standardize it at a high level and then leave the individual teams to customize it from there. And the second part has to be that they measure what they deliver. They measure how quickly they are able to roll back when something goes wrong in production, how quickly they are able to roll back, how quickly they are able to finally deliver the business outcomes, not just getting it from their dev environment to your pre-prod, but how quickly you are able to finally get it to the hands of customers. And think about the deployment processes. Like don't stick to something that you were using 10 years back. Don't keep the same thing. Like you automate a bad design, then it's still bad. So if you're automating, first sit and think whether you still need that, and whatever is being done today, is it still needed before you start trying to automate something. That's that's a good start. And then
I think
sure
so.
there
Yeah.
are many
All right. Who wants to go next?
I'll jump in. When it comes to best practices, there's books and everybody has thousands of opinions of best practices. Take a step back, have a practice, have a process that you can modify, have a process you can adapt, have a consistency, as Sanaa was saying, that you can move from, you can make changes to as you need to adapt. Having no process and trying to figure it out as you go is never a recipe for success. So we can get into micro levels of every single best practice, and there's lots of them out there, and none of them are really wrong. But I think when you don't have a process, when you don't have a practice to build from that you've laid out, you've thought about from the beginning for your environment, you're doomed to fail.
Good point.
To add to that, right? I mean, there's been a lot written about CI/CD processes where you can start from, like Jay said. There's great literature out there to kind of help you get started. But one of the things you need to do is always keep your end goal in mind. What is your end goal?
Mhm.
Is your end goal, I want to have more deployments? Because nobody really cares about that. The end goal is, I want to deliver value. So every part of your process that you're designing, keep that goal in mind. Think about, okay, I'm building 300 times a day. So what? How is it impacting? Or, hey, I delivered 20 features, but what about the quality? Is it there where I want it to be? So start measuring and start providing feedback always with the end goal in mind, right? All the other metrics, the in-between metrics in terms of I do X amount of releases, I found Y amount of bugs, or I committed X lines of code, kind of are secondary indicators, but always measure for the primary one, which is, am I delivering value? And design your processes around that, around continuous feedback, around value, and getting quality stuff out there to the customers fast.
I'll go. So I think I agree with everybody that like I could lay out all the bits and pieces that you need for a good pipeline, and there's a ton of great pieces. Starting with commit, just checking your code style, doing quick checks, unit tests, trying to get developers' feedback very quickly. I think my pet thing would be to put security considerations into your pipeline as early as you possibly can. And there's easy things that you can do, and then there's There's more difficult things that you can do, but at a minimum, there are a lot of great tools these days, and this space is developing rapidly where you can get certainly dependency analysis and static code analysis built right in. You can now get DAST, you can get dynamic analysis built into your pipeline at an early stage, and it's very approachable and easy to do. You want to make sure that you get this stuff in early so that you're catching things and you're starting from a good baseline, because you don't want to be playing catch up later on down the road.
All great comments. I love that, begin with the end in mind kind of thinking. The whole point is to look at what the ultimate goal here is, which is to deliver more value to customers. And there's some standardized metrics you can use to do that. We just recently did an announcement around the value stream flow metrics and looking at the flow of value from idea to production, picking those areas that are the most important to you to attack first, and taking a bite through that journey. There are some great books that have been written on this. Come to the Plutora site. Maybe we can see if we can get a couple of these posted. Gary Groover did a fantastic one on engineering the digital transformation. Mark Hornbeek on engineering DevOps. You can get a free copy of those on our website. They're great, and lots of insights on potential target areas. But it depends on where you're at and getting some of those metrics in that delivery process. Ultimately, you've got to change the mindset of we can make change. Bottom line, we can. In fact, we have to. We work at my company, we work with almost exclusively big companies, enterprises. And, when they talk about their software companies, they're talking about software companies in their IT that are, bigger than Facebook. It's mind-boggling to think about that. And not only that, but, they're hampered with legacy stuff that's been around for, in some cases, 50 years. People aren't retiring, they're dying. They're that it's this kind of mindset of how do you keep up with that? And when you can demonstrate value, to your leadership of, hey, look, we're going to double the number of features we're flowing through the system. We're going to increase our throughput by 25%. Imagine having a 25% more developers. We're going to reduce our incidents by a third. These are real results from our customers that are just down this journey. Not that we're anything special. I love what release orchestration does. HCL, Plutora, we offer that. I love the value of data. Everybody's got that. They're just pick an area and start.
Great advice from everybody. Thank you so much. We are about 3 minutes to the top of the hour, so we have to wrap up our conversation. I kind of get the feeling, though, we probably could go another hour without even taking a break. So, but I do want to thank everybody for such great commentary today. Just a quick reminder that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of it, or if you just want to watch it again, you'll have the opportunity to do so. We will be sending out an email after today's webinar that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. The webinar is also going to be living on the DevOps.com website, so you can always go look for it there. Just go to DevOps.com/webinars and look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. Okay, also, before we close things down, I did mention at the top of the hour, we would be doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do that. Our first winner today is G. Macario. Congratulations, G. Macario. Our second winner today is G. DeMeglio. Congratulations, G. Medeglio. Our third winner today is Jay Kapkun. Jay Kapkun, thank you very much. You are our third big winner today. And our fourth and final winner is Jay Kellogg. That's interesting, the way that worked out today. Congratulations, Jay Kellogg. We'll be getting in touch with you guys via email to get your Amazon gift cards over to you. So please check your inbox. And if you don't see anything there, please check your spam folder. Guys, what a great conversation. Jeff, Magna, Zachary, Jay, Senthil, thank you all. What great commentary. I sure got a lot out of it, and I'm quite sure the audience did as well. So thank you. Thank you again for being a part of today's conversation, and thank you. Thanks for providing the insight that you do. You guys are awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for putting
Thanks
it
for
together.
having us.
Also want to just let the audience know real quick, if you submitted a question, please know that the folks on today's panel are going to be getting a copy of all the questions that came through. So I'm sure they'll be more than happy to follow up with you offline. And I do want to thank the audience for joining me today. Good stuff all the way around. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm now signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and please stay safe.
Thank you.